What good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another reaction video. We got the greatest player to never win a Super Bowl. Let's check this out.
Athletes are often judged, rightly or wrongly, by their
What the fuck?
Professional athletes are often judged, rightly or wrongly, by
Nigga, the Casper beat his ass up or some shit?
No position has more pressure to win than quarterback. A QB
can't
even be considered in the greatest of all time argument without the rings to back it up. And yet, so many all-time great signal callers have never lifted a trophy, which leads to a different GOAT conversation. Who's the greatest player to never win an NFL championship?
Dan Marino.
The answer to that is easy. It's the man many consider the greatest pure passer to ever play, the three-time first-team All-Pro, the MVP. It's Dan Marino. But before Marino became an NFL superstar, he was a legendary quarterback for his hometown college team, the Pitt Panthers. He amazed everyone with his rocket arm and lightning-fast release from the pocket. Over a 4-year collegiate career, he threw for 8,597 yards and 79 touchdowns. Both were school records at the time. With Marino under center, the Panthers had some of their best years in program history, going 42-6 from 1979 to 1982, and posting 3 straight 11-win seasons. But despite their consistent success, they never won a national championship.
Damn, every team this nigga been on, they can't even get over the hump.
The Associated Press's final ranking in 1980. So Marino learned what it felt like to fall short of a championship before ever even making it to the NFL. Regardless, his play in college spoke for itself, and he was clearly a first-round talent heading into the '83 draft, a draft that's widely regarded as the best of all time, and was absolutely loaded at the quarterback position. Of course, John Elway and a lock to be the #1 pick. But many had Marino graded close to Elway, and everyone expected him to be taken early. Instead, he dropped almost all the way out of the first round and was the 6th quarterback taken.
Wow.
Quarterback?
Who was taken before him?
Pittsburgh.
I know Elway was definitely on that list of taking him before him. Who else?
College season was his senior year, and during his time
Weird
at Pitt,
he
built a reputation as a partier, with rumors going around that he even indulged in hardcore drugs from time to time. The rumor was never confirmed, and Marino later said that there was nothing to it. But in NFL circles,
good, like, bro, like you see that shit all the time, bro. Players get to the NFL, you know what I'm saying, make all this money, then they just start losing their fucking minds, bro. Whether it's doing drugs or goddamn, you know what I'm saying, being criminals and shit. Yes, I'm looking at you, Rashee Rice in Kansas City Chiefs. You know what I'm saying?
For his senior
like, bro.
In fact,
Damon Arnett, Henry Ruggs.
As the rumor spread, his test came back clean. But that information wasn't made public until 1984, Marino's 2nd year in the NFL. So, yes, a rumor was largely the reason so many teams passed on Marino, including his hometown Steelers, who picked 21st. But one team that wasn't scared off was the Miami Dolphins, who jumped at the chance to take Marino with the 27th overall pick, the next to last selection in the first round. And it makes perfect sense.
So it was only 28 picks in the first round back then.
Miami. What could go wrong? Luckily, nothing did. And the selection of Marino became one of the greatest value picks in NFL history, especially because Marino was now coming in with a chip on his shoulder. And he was being coached by the legendary Don Shula, who knew what it took to be a great quarterback. He played with Johnny Unitas and Otto Graham, and later coached Unitas with the Colts. So he instantly knew what he had in Marino. He saw in him a quality that other quarterbacks just didn't possess. The thing that Dan could do was fit that ball into tight places.
Pause, please, pause.
Fearless throwing the football.
I understand what he's saying, but yo, that shit just sounds crazy.
There were times in the field when I felt like I couldn't miss. In week 3 of Marino's rookie season, Shula threw him in a Monday night game against the Raiders in place of starter David Woodley. The Dolphins were trailing 27-0 with 5 minutes to play, and Marino threw 2 touchdown passes to make the score look respectable.
Oh my gosh!
And Marino threw 2 touchdown passes to make the score.
Bro, that's a fucking die. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh
my gosh, bro.
After Woodley failed to put up
that nigga Marino
came in and threw a touchdown for the Dolphins' only score in a loss to the Saints. Then, just a few days later, Shula named Marino the starter.
I decided to give him the opportunity to start the ball game today, right from the top, to see how he does.
And instantly, he became a star. In his first start, he threw for 322 yards and 3 touchdowns in an OT loss to the Bills. With Marino in charge, the Dolphins were a completely different team. They averaged 27 points a game in his 9 starts, which was 11 points better than their average before Marino became the starter. Miami won 9 of its last 10 games and captured the AFC East with a 12-4 record, earning a first-round bye in the playoffs. In their first game in the divisional round, they hosted the Seahawks, who had a 9-7 record in the regular season, and made the playoffs as a wild card, the game would become Marino's introduction to postseason struggles. He threw 2 interceptions.
Marino, who is 10 for 13, firing, and it's picked off. Yes, the intercept.
To go with 2 TDs, as Miami blew a fourth-quarter lead and lost 27-20. But the season was still an individual success for Marino. He finished 3rd in MVP voting and made the Pro Bowl as a rookie. So there was a lot to look forward to in South Beach. Heading
3rd in MVP voting as a rookie is crazy work. I ain't gonna lie.
Marino and the Dolphins were ready to go
shit right there
on the rest of the league. The destruction started in Week 1. Playing on the road against a good Washington team, Marino
like the
threw for
Big Show.
311 yards and 5 touchdowns for a 35-17 rout. All season long, he was simply untouchable. He threw at least a touchdown pass in all 16 regular season games. And when the season was over, he had shattered the NFL record for both passing yards and passing touchdowns.
Damn.
Marino
for
was
5,000 yards, 48
choice
tutties
for NFL MVP, and the voters picked him over Eric Dickerson, who set the league record for rushing yards in a season. That's just how unreal Marino was that season. With Marino destroying defenses, Miami started out 11-0 and finished with a 14-2 record. And Marino stayed hot in the playoffs. In the AFC Championship,
you know, quarterbacks get more recognition than running backs, so
421 yards and
really
4 touchdowns in a 45-28 win as Miami cruised to the Super Bowl. But their opponent was the 49ers, led by Joe Montana. Marino started hot in the game, completing 9 of his first 10 passes. The Dolphins scored the first 2 times they had the ball and led late in the first quarter, 10-7. But then it fell apart. The Niners defense made adjustments, and San Francisco's offense took control of the game by scoring 21 straight points. In the second half, Marino desperately tried to lead a comeback, but he ended up throwing 2 interceptions to seal the Dolphins' fate. Miami was shut out in the final 30 minutes and lost 38-16. After a game like that, a lot of teams would have suffered a Super Bowl hangover, but not the Dolphins. Not with Marino behind center. And after winning MVP and appearing in a Super Bowl in just his 2nd season, it was widely expected that Marino would win not 1, but multiple Super Bowls over his career. In 1985, Miami won their division again with a 12-4 record.
Ooh, what a
For
catch.
2nd year in a row, Marino led the NFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns. And in Week 13, he produced an epic performance in an instant classic. On a Monday night in Miami, he faced the 12-0 Chicago Bears and their fearsome 46 defense. But Marino was always one step ahead of the Bears' pass rush all night. He completed only 14 passes in the game, but went for 270 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Into the arms of Clayton.
Miami spanked Chicago 38-24. It was the Bears' only loss of the season. A month later, Marino was back in the playoffs. He was now 3 for 3 in getting to the postseason. Then, in the divisional round, the Dolphins hosted the Browns. After Miami fell behind 21-3, another playoff failure felt imminent, until Marino pulled off a postseason miracle. In the third quarter, he started the comeback with a TD pass to Nat Moore. And in the fourth quarter, he finished the job by leading a long scoring drive. On the first play after the 2-minute warning, Miami took a 24-21 lead on a Ron Davenport touchdown run and held on for the win. And so, they were headed back to the conference championship game with a team of destiny feel, hosting the New England Patriots. Miami was favored to beat New England and return to the Super Bowl. A win would also mean a rematch for the Bears. But once again, the Dolphins fell into a big hole. In the third quarter, they trailed 24-7. Marino would need to perform another miracle. But this time, he couldn't do it. Late in the fourth quarter, with his team down 31-14, he heaved a desperation pass into the end zone that was intercepted.
Intercepted by Claiborne.
That was Miami's 6th turnover of the game.
6th turnover?
Done. This loss sent them into a downward spiral. In 1986, Marino
6 turnovers one game is
tremendous
crazy, bro. I ain't
season.
gonna
For
lie
the third
to you.
consecutive year, he led the league in passing yards and touchdowns, and Miami led the league in scoring. But the Dolphins' Week 3 game against the Jets showed them what the next 4 seasons would be like, because Marino was on fire that day. He completed 30 of 50 passes for 448 yards and a career-high 6 touchdowns. But Miami's defense just could not stop the Jets. On the final play of regulation, New York scored a touchdown to force overtime. A few minutes later, the Jets won, 51-45, on a long pass from Ken O'Brien to Wesley Walker.
Hector O'Brien going for it all to Walker.
Damn, that's a dime.
An identity was being created, a historic offense led by Marino and a horrible defense that held the Dolphins back. From 1986 through 1989, Miami missed the playoffs. Then, in 1990, the defense finally got fixed, and Marino no longer needed to carry the load. Miami was back to being a playoff team almost every year. But that ultimately just led to more bitter endings for Marino and the Finns. But we'll get to those losses in a minute. First, we have to jump to the 1993 season, where, in Week 6, Marino was facing the Browns in Cleveland. In the second quarter, he dropped back to pass. As he tried to step up in the pocket, his right foot got stuck in the turf. He threw the pass, and it turned out to be his last play of the season. Marino suffered a torn Achilles, and the Dolphins' hope of a Super Bowl
bro, that's that turf game.
Crushed. In the summer of 1994, Marino was 32 and working his way back from a serious injury. Prior to going down, he had played in 145 consecutive non-strike games, but now there were questions about how he would hold up when he returned to the field. Well, he gave us his answer in Miami's season opener against the Patriots. Marino and New England's Drew Bledsoe put on an insane aerial duel. The two men combined for 894 yards and 9 touchdowns passing. Marino threw 5 TDs himself, and the 5th was an absolute "did he just do that?" moment. With just over 3 minutes to play, Miami was trailing by 4 points and facing a 4th down at the New England 35. Marino could have settled for a first down, but he saw Irving Fryer get wide open down the sideline and hit him in stride for a go-ahead touchdown. Miami held on for a 39-35 win. I actually wasn't sure how I was going to play. Once I got out there and started playing, it was like I wasn't even hurt. In Week 13, Marino conjured more late-game magic, but this time he showed off sleight of hand. Against the Jets in a game with huge playoff implications, Miami trailed 24-6 in the third quarter. Marino threw 2 touchdown passes to Mark Ingram to get it to 24-20. Then, with 2.5 minutes remaining, the Dolphins got the ball back at their 16-yard line. Marino drove his team into the red zone. With 34 seconds remaining, he motioned like he was going to spike the ball and stop the clock. He took the snap and dropped back to pass, hitting Ingram in the end zone on a back shoulder pass against an unsuspecting Aaron Glenn. Miami went on to win 28-24. That fake spike crushed the Jets' souls and sent the Dolphins on their way to the playoffs, where, of course, they would fall short again. By now, coming up short was a theme. From 1990 to 1999, Miami reached the postseason 7 times. 7 more chances for Marino to win a title. Each time, the Dolphins came up short. In fact, they never even got to a Super Bowl. They lost twice in the wild card round, 4 times in the divisional round, and once in the AFC title game. The final loss in the 1999 AFC divisional round was the ultimate embarrassment. Miami traveled up to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars, and the 38-year-old Marino tried to summon whatever powers he had left. He had nothing. On his first pass of the game, he threw an interception. Later in the first quarter, he was sacked and then fumbled. The Jags returned it for a touchdown to go up 24-0. The score later ballooned to 41-0. Just before halftime, Marino threw a consolation TD pass.
Touchdown.
And in the third quarter, he was taken out of the game. Miami lost 62-7. It was the largest defeat in franchise history and the second most lopsided playoff score ever. This game was also the last one of Marino's NFL career. Cruel end for an all-time great player whose playoff woes would forever haunt him.
Telling you, not with
wait a minute. I got to a Super Bowl.
I know you, but
In March of 2000, he announced his retirement. A ring would now be out of reach forever. The Super Bowl loss in his second season was the only time Marino ever made it to the big game. I thought for sure I'd be back to the Super Bowl, and I would win a Super Bowl. You just got to accept what it is. And it really sucks that the lack of a Super Bowl title overshadows what he did in his career, because damn, he was good. At the time of his retirement, he held the NFL record for touchdown passes, passing yards, completions, touchdown passes in a season, and passing yards in a season. He also led 33 fourth-quarter comebacks, second only to Johnny Unitas' 34. He posted 147 wins as a starter and was selected to 9 Pro Bowls and 3 All-Pro first teams. Then, in 2005, Marino added Pro Football Hall of Famer to his list of accomplishments. So he really doesn't need a ring to have his career validated. Marino was the greatest passer the NFL had ever seen at the time, and he paved the way for so many gunslingers that came after him. If you enjoyed this video, stick with Blitz, subscribe, and check out some of our other content.
What do you guys think about this? You know what I'm saying? About Dan Marino. I wish he would have won at least one ring, you know what I'm saying? But I want to ask y'all this. You know what I'm saying? Is a quarterback still considered the GOAT or a great quarterback if he has not won a ring? You know what I'm saying? Because I've heard, you know what I'm saying, different opinions about this. If you have not won a ring, you're not considered a great QB. You know what I'm saying? That's what I've heard. I'm not I'm not really sure about that. Like, there is some truth to that, but also there isn't any truth to that, because if you're able to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, then you are a great quarterback. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, but I want to know what you guys think about that. Y'all let me know what other NFL videos y'all want to react to. Without further ado, I'm out. Yeah.